Hello there, and welcome to another episode of Sincerely Agile with Mary. On this platform, if you're joining us for the first time or you're watching this replay, this is a place where we like to educate, inform, and just facilitate the growth mindset. It's a place where we believe in people's resourcefulness, and we definitely believe that we can be awesome and wholesome together. Now, today we're looking at an interesting topic: Agile, a passing fad? The question is it a passing fad? And I have an amazing coach, a seasoned coach, in the name of Stephen Omojuyigbe, joining me on this conversation. He's an enterprise agile coach, and we're just going to welcome him to the podcast. Hello, Stephen. I can't hear you. Can you
Can
hear
you?
me though?
Yeah, I can hear you very well. Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now. How are you doing? Welcome to Sincerely Agile with Mary.
I am doing very, very well, and thank you for the great work you do, and thank you for the invitation. It's
Thank
a
you.
pleasure to
Thank
be
you.
here.
Thank you so much. We stream on LinkedIn, Facebook, and YouTube, as I'm sure you know. And we also have a live audience joining us. Now, there are some areas you and I already have, we have both agreed to talk to, and our audience may also have their questions. But before we go ahead, how are you doing? How have you been? And, how are you looking towards, the end of the year?
Well, I'm doing very fine, except that I have a little cold. So if I sound a little froggy, that's why. But I think my head is clear, and
Okay.
I should still be able to make sense. Looking forward to the holidays.
Fantastic. I'm also looking forward to the holidays. It's been a very busy year. I can't wait to just down my tools and start eating all the Christmas food. And then I'll worry about the weight in January.
Well,
I'll worry about the weight in January. I feel we have some people join us. Oh, Ronke is here. Ola Fatana also is here, and a few more people will definitely join us. It's so good to have you ladies here join me. Thank you very much for being here. And of course, we have a lot of people that watch the replay as
hmm
well. Now, let me read out your bio first and foremost so that people will get to know who you are and the caliber of who you are from a professional standpoint. So I'm just going to read out your bio. Stephen is a self described agile evangelist and a senior consultant and enterprise agile coach. He is the SME responsible for agile learning and development at the CGI Agile Center of Excellence, a SAFe certified program consultant and agile coach with 21 years project management experience spanning several industries into continents. He possesses a strong understanding and has hands on experience of several agile frameworks and the SAFe framework. He trains, coaches, and mentors. He also facilitates agile transformation strategies, helping organizations transition to agile ways of working. He is passionate about reducing people debt and building strong runways for agile approaches. As a certified emotional intelligence trainer, he coaches and trains on how leaders can develop EI skills, that is, emotional intelligence skills, and apply those skills to agile ways of working. That is an impressive bio there, Stephen, and you are most welcome to Sincerely Agile with Mary. Now, you seem to have been in the field for a while. You started in project management and you have over 2 decades experience in project management. So my first question to you would be, it's an interesting one anyway, because I'm asking, when and how did your agile journey start? Because from your bio, I can see that you were already in that project management space. So when and how did your agile journey start?
so that's that's a very good question. It's an interesting one also. I actually started in business consulting. I worked in organizational development consulting for a while. And then I moved into project management. That's been over 2 decades now. And my project management experience is divided broadly into two parts. The first part is in the traditional project management space, brick and mortar. I was building houses, restaurants, and that kind of work.
Right.
And then of course my agile experience. Now, in between those two experiences, um, I did try my hands at building a software as a service business myself with a couple of friends, and that was a colossal failure. It really failed
But
badly.
I'm sure you learned a lot from it.
I'm coming right to that. It was in the process of debriefing that. Why did we fail? We had a product that was niche. We had what we thought was a good product for a good market, but I was new, and my partners were also new to building software, and so we tried to build it this wonderful way. We had offshore consultants in Ukraine, interestingly, who were building the product for us. And we were full of ideas. And we kept adding feature and adding feature. We couldn't just agree on when to roll out. We wanted to come out with a really wonderful product that was going to be a killer in the market. By the time we were eventually uh, ready to go to the market, the platform upon which we built, the technology platform upon which we built, had stopped being supported. And I can go on and on and on and tell you some classic uh, challenges with traditional way of building software and the software business that we encountered, and we didn't know a thing. I was coming from traditional project management, and I brought all of those skills and those experiences. So it was in the process of debriefing that experience that I found Agile, and I
Right.
was like, "Oh my goodness, where how did I not know this?" I probably would have become a millionaire in America. Maybe I wouldn't be on your podcast. How did I not know these things about how to build a software business? And that was how my agile experience started. And that's why sometimes when I talk agile, I really speak from the heart. I speak from a place of passion because I really understand the difference, and the challenges you're going to have trying to build software to the market or trying to operate a software business if you're not working in agile ways.
Absolutely, because that environment is moving so fast. It's a
Mm,
volatile environment. You said something. You said you couldn't agree on a feature. Let's add this, let's add that. In that space, by the time you're even deciding on the next feature and the next feature, your competitors have moved on.
yeah.
They have maybe had two or three releases into the market, and they are gaining that market share, as it were. That's an interesting one. Now, my second question: what was your aha moment? It was sort of interwoven into what you just answered,
Mm.
because I believe we all have that aha moment. Like you said, where has this been all along?
The aha moment, like you said, is very much like I've just described.
Mm,
I was coming from this massive failure. We had invested hundreds of thousands of dollars, and we were coming out with nothing, absolutely nothing. The market changed. The market dynamic had changed. The strategic understandings upon which we came to the market was no longer, I mean, the strategic assumptions were no longer valid. So the aha moment was for me was months later as I thought about what we could have done differently. And I started to do some studies, and I found out that there was this agile thing. And every single thing I was learning then was answering questions and solving problems that we encountered. For example, the issue of an MVP. I didn't know there was, I knew the idea of coming to the market with a product that people want to use, but I didn't really understand that an MVP is designed by a minimum feature that just allows you to go to the market and get feedback. And
exactly.
we kept adding features, we kept having ideas, and we thought having more and more ideas and trying to build more and more features into the product was a good thing, that we're going to come into the market with a product that was better than everything in its class. And so
Absolutely.
those lessons are very vital. And those are the challenges that Agile is designed to solve.
Absolutely, because it's not about just churning out features. It's about trying to test a hypothesis, if you like. What do people really want? That's an interesting one. So I bet you learned a lot at much earlier on.
Well, those lessons were very expensive.
Very expensive, very, very expensive lessons. I totally understand what you mean. Now, the main focus of our conversation here today is about the question we asked at the beginning: Agile, is it a passing fad?
Mm,
Right? Now, why are companies downsizing agile roles? Now, in the last few years now, just past COVID, I think there's been a lot of layoffs of scrum masters, a lot of layoff of agile coaches because organizations are saying they are not getting the value. So why? That's one of the reasons. So why else? What else rather?
So to really answer your question and to give your viewers and people who are listening a good understanding of what the challenge is, it's important, I think, to go down the memory lane. Now, computer science and software engineering as a discipline, both of them are relatively new when you compare them to the other classical engineering disciplines like civil, electrical, manufacturing, those kind of things. And the people who first created computer engineering were traditional engineers, your electrical engineers, and so they brought in their traditional understanding, which is why either to uh, software used to be built like you build a car or like you build a bridge. Um, but, and this is very important, as far back as the early 1960s, maybe late 1950s, the challenge with that was already apparent. The challenge of cost overruns, the challenge of um, rapid change in technology, all of those challenges that are common with traditional ways of building software were already in existence as far back as the 1960s. And this is the key: different ways of working that solve those problems already evolved since that time. And so all over the world, especially in the US and other places, um, people were looking for and inventing new ways and new approaches and new ways of working that solve their problem
Hmm.
until the agile industry, quote and unquote, now took off in the early 2000s. And the the shift was from trying to solve a problem to installing frameworks. And so instead of focusing on the problem to solve, value for the customer, cost savings, reduction of defects and rework, those kind of things, we started, the industry started focusing on frameworks. And so the shift towards a more holistic approach in Agile, which is what is leading to the de-emphasis on traditional roles like specific framework-based coaches, scrum masters, etc., is because of that. Um, there's a need to focus on the problem to solve. Uh, the businesses are not interested in agile. I like to say that they're not. They're really not interested in anything except solving problems, creating value for their customers so that they can make money. And so, uh, but another problem happened, Mary, that I think is important. If you looked on LinkedIn today and you find any Scrum Master job opening, you get up about 600 to 1,000 people who are applying. And without trying to sound dismissive, a lot of these folks have attended a 2 days training. They've read
Yes.
a 17-page document,
Hmm.
and some of them have done no exam at all. And not as if exams are important, but my point being, uh, so a lot of so-called Scrum Masters don't understand software development. They
Hmm.
don't understand the value the companies are trying to create. And a lot of the companies who are hiring them don't even know what a good Scrum Master looks like.
Looks
They
like.
don't they don't even know or an agile coach for that matter. So over the years, the past 3 years, as companies ramped up and kind of scaled up production to meet the demands of a remote workplace due to the pandemic, so many of these kinds of professionals were hired. And the truth of the matter is that nobody wants to continue to pay $120,000 for someone who just facilitates meetings and moves tickets on Jira. So I'm proud of the profession, and I'm not talking down on the profession or professionals at all. But to answer your question, businesses are looking for value, and they are not getting it in some of the people who hold these roles, and
Mm.
that's where there is a very critical need to upgrade and to upskill.
Wow, you have put that so well. Now let's go back to value. Let's go back to solving a problem.
Yeah.
Organizations exist to deliver value. They exist to, make revenue, right?
Yeah.
They are not a charity organization, okay?
True.
So the bottom line is important to every organization. Even if you're a charity organization, you want to deliver value to your, to your the community that you serve.
Mm-hmm.
Now, delivering value means you are either solving a problem or you're taking advantage of an opportunity.
Yes.
Okay. And let us forget the word agile for a minute.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. If you had asked me 8, 9 years ago, Mary, what is agile? I will give you the classic dictionary definition of agile: agility, flexibility, adaptability.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. We often see an old people and we say, oh, this woman is 90 years old or this man is 9 years, but he's still very agile.
Mm-hmm.
I know I have made that statement several times in my lifetime before
Mm-hmm.
I knew what agile meant
Mm-hmm.
in terms of helping organizations deliver value.
Mm.
So the word agile, flexibility, adaptability, responsiveness, it means what it means, and that
Yes.
will never go away.
True.
Let's get that clear. That
Yes.
will never go away. Even what's this man's name? Darwin. Was it Darwin that said it's about being adaptable, right?
Mm-hmm.
Success is not to the most intelligent, but to the most adaptable.
Very
And
true.
that is a quote that has been with us for a very, very long time. Okay. And that is, I would say, an agility quote.
Yes, it is. It is
It
an
is an
agility quote.
agility quote. So
Yeah.
if you're not changing, you're going to die. If you're
Mm.
not changing, you're going to become extinct. If you're not changing, you're going to be a dinosaur. If you're not changing, you will not, be responsive. Okay.
Mm.
So organizations now more than ever need agile.
True.
But let's forget the word agile for a moment and let us say, what do organizations need in order for them to deliver value? They need to be adaptable. They need to be responsive. They
Mm.
need to, they need people who can help them, with processes that help them with the flow of value.
Mm-hmm.
I'll
Mm-hmm.
bring it back to you. Please
Mm.
continue from there.
So I think you're speaking to a very critical issue in this whole matter, which is the issue of definition.
Mm-hmm.
Um, um, Agility, like you eloquently explained, it's not a new word,
No.
and the meaning of it, it's not something uh, out there. When I think about agility, I think about two words. I think about light, Light,
Mm-hmm.
which essentially means that uh, I don't want to be heavy.
Yes.
And all of that has to do, or rather, comes from the 50-year-old idea of lean
Yeah.
manufacturing.
Yeah.
And being lean
Mm-hmm.
is not a software development term.
No.
It's a life term. Nobody wants to be too heavy. You
Yes.
want to be lean as much as possible.
Yeah, and be
And
agile so that you
I,
can be agile.
I'm coming to agile, yes. And then the second word is light,
Mhm.
Lithe.
Okay.
Lithe means the ability to be flexible and to be adaptable and to
Mhm.
be to change quickly, rapidly. And
Rapidly.
like you just said now, being lean or light helps you to be adaptable and quick, being able to change.
Yeah.
So lean and agility are no new ideas.
No.
What happened around 2001 when the agile industrial complex, as some people now call it, started was this. There are practices that are mushroomed all over the place
Yes.
that helped companies be lean and adaptable. And then folks come together and say, let's codify these practices. And that's where frameworks began. Now, like every cliche, the people who started, or the first time you hear the word, or the first time the term is used, those who were using those words understood what it meant.
Yes.
Agile for them was a set of principles, a
Yes.
set of principles from which certain practices have evolved. Now, as with every cliche, with every with time passing, the meaning gets lost. And so when people say agile today, they are really referring to a framework. And sometimes when I train, I ask this question: in your organization or in your business or in your group, when you hear the word agile, what do you hear people talking about? Are they talking about a set of principles, or are they talking about frameworks? And maybe you won't believe this: 98% of people tell me, oh, when we talk agile, we're talking about a framework.
Yes.
Now, that disconnect between the original intent and original meaning of the
Mm-hmm.
word agile and that movement, which was a set of principles that allowed us to be lean and adaptable, and the disconnection between that and the practices which were not codified into a framework is the root of the problem.
It
So,
is.
so as you will see, lots of company, and we can get to talk about this later. A lot of the big companies, they are all agile, but most of them are not into any kind of framework. They have been
Yes.
able to evolve, new ways of working, an integrated approach that is unique to them. That's why you have, for example, the Spotify approach. uh, all of these companies, they are
Even
all agile.
Spotify, even Spotify will tell you there's no such thing as a Spotify model because
Aha.
they started evolving and evolving, doing things to suit themselves. Like you
Exactly.
just said, you talked
Mm,
about organizations being unique. And let me very quickly go back to the 17 stakeholders, that came up with the manifesto.
mm,
Now, what I find interesting, which I feel sometimes people overlook when we talk about the 17 stakeholders and we talk about the agile values and principles, is that you touched on it actually a little bit.
mm,
You said before then they had different people have started trying different things.
mhm,
So by the time these stakeholders came together, some people were already doing XP, some
mhm.
were doing Kanban, some were
True.
doing Scrum, some were
Yes.
doing FDD, some were doing BDD, all these framework, if you like,
Yes.
or practices that
Mhm,
come under the agile umbrella. But
mm,
this is the key thing. As they met over this 2-day period,
mm,
at no point, and I repeat, at no point did they agree on any of those practices
mm.
as an agile framework or
Yes.
as a standard. But instead, they gave us 4 values and 12 principles. So,
Mm,
my interpretation of that is this: in order for you to say you want to embrace agile, you're really embracing those values and principles. And that may well mean you're using Scrum also, you're using Lean, you're using Kanban, you're using FDD, whatever works for your context. Because you and I know that Agile in itself is not a silver bullet, like we say.
no, it's
So
not.
it's not about installing a framework. So it's about those 4 values and principles. So if you're doing Scrum, are you embracing those 4 values and principles? If you're doing Kanban, are you embracing the philosophies and values and principles that helps you thrive? Because those are tools. I like to see them as
Yeah.
tools.
I mean, it would have been absolutely impossible then and
Yeah,
now for anyone to create a method or a framework that will be applicable to every company in every situation to every product. That's
exactly.
absolutely not possible. But
Hmm.
the human nature is pretty much one of the reasons why this is. We like to simplify things.
Mm.
We like formulas. I like
Yes.
formulas.
Yes.
If I'm trying to cook, give me a recipe, tell me
Mhm.
exactly what to do, and I'll be
Yeah.
fine. And so they gave us those set of principles, and then we started evolving the frameworks. And then people were trying to sell frameworks that don't really help either.
Hmm.
And so we have to go back to where we understand the principles, we apply it in our different context,
Yeah.
and we use it to create value for the customer. I say this:
Mm.
there is the idea, right, for example, of hybrid ways of working.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't believe there is an hybrid way of working. I'll tell you why.
Mm-hmm.
The idea behind an hybrid way of working is that you do some I mean, you tailor your agile approaches and you bring in some traditional approaches, and so it becomes an hybrid. And I say no. When you tailor any approach to fit your context, you're agile. Tailoring an approach to fit your context does not make you less agile. It
No, it
actually
doesn't.
makes you more
More
agile,
agile. Yeah.
because being agile is to be adaptable. So the fact that I drop some elements of a particular framework and I pick on some more traditional ways of working, I don't see that as an hybrid. I see that as being as agile as I can
As you
be.
can possibly be.
So the challenge, like I said, is the disconnect between the understanding of
Hmm.
of the principles and the purpose for and the definition of what agile is.
Hmm.
The disconnect from the different frameworks and the different practices that have become the staple of consultants who are trying to sell stuff.
Absolutely. And of course, there's a lot of money to be made in training. There was never a time when I felt a 2 day training was sufficient for anybody to be a Scrum Master and Agile coach. I
Mm,
come from an IT background. I go as far back as Oracle 7. I was doing Oracle 7 in the 90s with the likes of British Petroleum and British Telecom. So I come from a technology background. So I have that, right?
mm,
I am a bit of an entrepreneur. I have that. I've been in organizational development. I have that. So
mm,
I came into this space just like you 8 years ago with those transferable skills
mm,
which I can use to add value to organizations. So for me, obviously I did a lot of training. So I didn't think 2 days training, was ever going to be sufficient. So in terms of training, I think a lot of problem has also emerged
mhm.
with this idea of 2 days training, no immersion in albeit a role play. Proper role play, it goes a long way. So, in terms of training, what do you say? Because I believe a lot of coaching and mentoring is needed before we can even say someone is starting as a scrum master.
That's a very good question. So I think my my approach is this:
Mm,
every industry needs to have processes and systems that allow people to come into the industry from other industries or from other fields, especially in this modern world where each one of us is probably going to be in two or three or four, maybe even more jobs or roles before we retire. Nobody's going to be in one job
yeah.
ever. And as new ideas come up, new roles come up.
Hmm.
So there should be a way for people to get trained as scrum masters. But I think
Yeah.
the number one, my and this is what we do in our Agile Center of Excellence. One of
Hmm.
the things we do, the idea of boot camps is pretty much useful. And in our boot camps, we have the trainings and we have
Hmm.
people get immersed in shadowing people who have been in that role, and that way they can, in the first instance, they have the company culture, they have the engineering skills, they have the understanding of how we do software, and so it's easy for them to learn about being a scrum master and transition into that role. So I think those people out there who offer trainings
Hmm.
should rather think more of putting up boot camps. Certification trainings are what they are. They are certification trainings. They are not skill development trainings. A
Exactly.
certification training presumes that you already have the skills,
Yeah.
and 2 days of instruction allows you to demonstrate that you have that skill and to pick up on gaps you may have in the skill, and then the exam validates that you have the skill. But to not have any kind of software development experience, have no experience around creating change and leading people, and to do it to this program is really a disservice to the people who are taking those programs and who are taking those courses. A lot of companies do boot camps, even for different roles, for engineering roles. There are people
Yeah.
who pivot from non-engineering roles into engineering roles in some of the big tech companies, who just go through a process within the company that allows them to be immersed, like you said, into the role and to learn the practices. So that's, I think, is probably what the industry need to focus on, rather than the 2 days training, which, like I said,
Mm.
it just helps to validate the fact that you have the skill. It does not develop the skill in you.
Exactly. So, I mean, the reason it is important to touch on this is, I mean, a lot of people who want to become Scrum Masters watch this show. So it is important for people to know that it's not enough to just have a 2 days training.
Hmm.
I remember once somebody said, "Why is your training so long?" Because people stayed with me for 3 months, people stayed with me for 6 months, some a bit longer. "Oh, your training are so long. Some people are just doing it in 2 days." I'm like, anyway, this is how I do it, right? Because I believe people need to be immersed in some kind of boot camp. So it is important that we put the message out there. Two
Hmm.
days will not be enough. I mean, like you said today, you see a job ad for Scrum Master roles, and you have already 600, 1,000 applicants
Yeah.
for that role,
Hmm.
right? Now, people really need to start putting their money where their mouth is.
Yeah.
Go for training that will immerse you in a boot camp.
Mm.
Go for training where after the 2 day training, you will have coaching, you will have mentoring, you will perhaps even have help with the process of getting a job in terms of, interview preparation and all of that. But more importantly, that immersion into some kind of simulation, if you like,
Definitely. Yes.
simulation of product
It needs to
development.
be, there needs to be simulation, there needs to be
Yeah,
hands-on experience with some of the practices. I mean, it's how skill have always has always been developed. So
exactly.
for those who might be listening, who want to get into the industry, you really need
Yes,
to pay attention to what Mary is saying, and look for a training that gives you the opportunity to be immersed in a
to be
projectized
immersed.
environment and
Yeah.
actually develop the skills.
Mm. And another thing that I think it's important for us to emphasize here. I was actually in a webinar yesterday with Bob Gallen, and there's nothing to be afraid of. That is what he's saying. If you know your onions, if anything, and I'm going to say that again, if anything, organizations need agility now more than ever.
Very true.
So, but the point is, do you know your onions?
Well,
Do you have the skills?
I
Or
think
you just have a certificate?
yes, that is one key problem. Do you have the skills? Do you have the understanding of the role? And can you deliver? But there's another problem. A lot of people
Mhm.
who hire for these roles don't even know what they're looking for.
Okay.
um, a good scrum master, a good agile
Mhm.
coach is an incredible value to any organization, to any team. Um, the job of a scrum master, for example, is to build a high performing team, because high performing teams build great products. Now, every company wants to build great products, and so every company needs to build high performing team. A scrum master that can move the needle on the performance of a team
Mhm.
and make the team great
Mhm.
will always get a job. The challenge,
Absolutely.
like we've been saying, is that, and the same thing for agile coaches, for that matter. An
Mhm.
agile coach that can coach an organization, coach a program, or coach maybe a release train, whatever you call your team of teams,
Mhm.
and really improve and move the needle on value delivery.
Mhm.
That's an incredible asset to have. But how do
Absolutely.
you interview for one? How do
Mhm.
you, what questions do you ask that allows you to understand that this is how do you even recognize a good one? A lot of people who hire don't know
Don't know what to look for.
what a good one it looks like, and so they
Absolutely.
hire people who cannot do the job. They get disappointed that they're not getting value, and then agile is bad. Agile coaches are bad. They don't
Exactly.
deliver value.
Exactly. And that is also coming from the point of view that agile, if we want to look at it from that point of view, agile transformation, agile ways of working, is still very early days yet. It is still very early. It's only, I mean, it's just about 20 years old if we want to look at it from the point of view of the manifesto and when things really started to catch on. So a lot of organizations don't know how to interview for agile coaches, how to interview for a scrum master, or what they should be looking out for.
Mm.
And scrum masters who don't have the skills also, they are just going for the basic. They don't even know what questions to ask. I mean, for example, you're joining a new organization as a scrum master. We should already be asking the questions about how our value can be shown, can be, made visible. And one of the ways we can make our value visible is to find out what isn't working currently, or try to link what the team does to the business, bottom line. So, for example, if you have team ABC right? And I'm being recruited into Team C as a Scrum Master. If Team C does not perform well, what does that mean for the organization?
Mm.
How do they contribute to the overall, objective of the organization? How are they measured from a business perspective? So these are some of the questions that Scrum Masters should be asking. What business value does this team add? Because then you can then link your activities and the activities of the team in that direction. So that's one way to look at it.
That is a very, very, very valid point. And you've explained it so well. The way I like to explain it is this. Um, so let's use what most agile coaches will be
Mm,
familiar with: metrics. Why do you measure any metric, and what metrics should you measure?
hmm.
It has to start from the business objectives. So, what
Yes.
is the company interested in? So, say for example, you have a program or you have a product, and you're trying to improve. Let's go with something that's very popular. You're trying to improve the cost you're spending on reworks. Now, at the very high level, as a business,
Hmm.
the reduction of the cost of rework will have a straight line or a connecting line to the business bottom line.
Yeah.
So right from the very top, the CEO who is trying to improve the business results and say he wants to reduce his cost by 10%. And from this product, if I can reduce my cost by 5%, you can then take that objective and take it down until each team on the that is contributing to that product knows by how much percent they need to improve
Prove.
or reduce their rate
Mm.
of rework, and
Yeah,
they can
or defects as
or
it were. So
defect,
yeah.
and they can trace that straight to the very highest level of the company's performance. And
Yes.
that way it's clear for a scrum master or an agile coach to define or show its value to the team.
Yeah.
But here's the challenge. To do any of that, Mary, you have to have some kind of consulting skills. You have
Yes.
to have, and that's why there are a lot of skills, and you mentioned some of them in your context and in my context at the beginning. There are a lot of skills that are adjacent to agile coach skills that are not necessarily agile things that, but if you don't have those skills, for example, what I just described, even if you are good and valuable, your company may not know that you're good and valuable
Hmm.
because you are not able to demonstrate how you contribute to the company's result, the
Yeah.
metrics that matter to the business. And you're
Yeah.
busy showing velocity, and you're busy showing some of these metrics, and they don't
They
understand,
don't mean
they don't
anything.
mean anything to them. Yeah.
Mm-mm. Because at the end of the day, I mean, velocity is useful, but it's only useful for the team.
It's only useful for the team. And if the business owners and if the executives don't understand how that
Hmm.
contributes to the dollars that they measure on a daily basis, they're not
Exactly.
interested in it either.
Exactly. And this is where a good understanding of the managers also matters when it comes to, bringing in Scrum Masters or trying to help facilitate your teams into high performing teams. Like you said, coming together and really having that conversation on the metrics that matter. Because another thing we need to understand is gathering metrics and interpreting them takes time. So by the time you have this metric and that metric and they all look fancy on a dashboard, but what value does it add? So for those listening, Scrum Master, Agile coaches, these are very valid conversations we're having here. How do you demonstrate your value? You go into an organization, make sure that you can see how the team contributes to the business objectives in terms of the outcomes that the organization is trying to deliver. Thank you very much. And Tokpe Awere has been putting some serious comments here. Let me highlight them for you to see. Agile was just a punctuation point and amalgamation of practices and intentions under an umbrella. He was also agreeing with something I agreed that context will always be king. Absolutely. Context will always be king. Agile is not a silver bullet. It is not about, a cookie cutter approach. What you did for organization A will not work for organization B. You have to go into each organization to, understand their own peculiar issues, their own
Hmm.
peculiar needs. It's like you call a plumber to, for a service. They come with a toolbox, right? They
Yes,
come with a toolbox, and they will not necessarily use all the tools in that toolbox. Based on the discovery of what they find, they do some kind of, search. Okay, what's wrong with this machine? What's wrong with that machine? And based on what they find, then that will determine the tools that they pull out. It's no
absolutely.
different when we're working as agile coaches or consultants. We go through the discovery phase to figure out what their current reality is, what their pain points, and what is their pain point, what problem are they trying to solve. That is why you find a lot of leaders are not interested in agile training. But the
Mm.
moment they have a problem and you are able to immediately draw on something to help them with it and solve their problem, they begin to have an interest in your coaching and in what you want to do. You know?
Very, very true. But there's also an adjacent problem to that, Mary. And
Yes.
now this is for people who might be watching or who may watch later, who are
Mm-hmm.
managers or executives in some of these companies. Most companies in transiting to agile, they
Mm-hmm.
focus on training the teams.
Yeah.
And it is one of the biggest mistakes
Yeah.
anyone can make,
Yes.
because part of the one, you mentioned it earlier, one important adjacent skill for an agile coach is change management skills.
Yes.
And if one critical thing we know as far as change management is concerned is that the most viable and the most effective people to deliver the messages of change to anyone are the people they report to, people that manage them. And so I
Yes.
always tell folks that agile coaches often carry the right message, but they are the wrong people delivering it. The managers who have strong relationships with the team members, the managers who are responsible for the careers of these people, the managers who are responsible for the profit and loss of the product or the project. These are the people who should be carrying the message. And
Yeah.
so when you don't train executives, or when executives don't really truly understand what agility is from the grounds up, that is
Yeah.
from the principles, and you know uh, demonstrate that and practice that, and be an example for all of that, and then set the expectations with the team or for the team, and reward those behaviors. Like, the whole system has to be built around the behaviors you're trying to see. But when you
Absolutely.
have systems, legacy systems, whether technological legacy system or cultural legacy systems, that are not in line with agility, and you're just training people to run ceremonies, and you will not get the results or the value you're supposed to get from agile transformation. That's
Absolutely.
where some of the bad names and some of the blanket uh, conversations around agile doesn't work. That's where it comes from,
Hmm.
because leaders or managers and executives think that they can just dump agile on the teams, and
It won't
suddenly
work.
there will be a change. No,
It won't work. It's
agile
not
is.
what you do to the delivery team, and we've seen a lot of that
Mhm.
happening. Go and do agile with them. It's not what we have to do. And
Yes.
like you said, where's the client responsibility there? If
Mm,
that is the approach we want to take,
mm,
and if you, I mean, those particular relationship between, for example, the manager and the team, those should even become more solid. And this is where the training in terms of agility, in terms of the mindset, comes in. You talked about emotional intelligence. This is where the emotional intelligence comes in. This is where psychological safety comes in, because we're talking about creating a high performing team. How can we create an environment where we know that our vulnerability will be rewarded? So, as a manager, how am I showing up? So, it's not only what is happening externally, it is also how I, as a manager, as a leader, can look inward to reflect, to say, how am I contributing to the interactional patterns that we
yeah.
have that are not serving us in terms of what we want to achieve as an organization? So,
Mm,
and this is a lot of change management stuff we're talking about here. When you
very
start
true.
talking about interactional force field, you start talking about being in rescue mode or being in client responsibility mode when you are, engaging with leaders and managers within the organization. So there's a lot of change management that is involved when we want to move from traditional ways of working to agile ways of working, or let me step back a little bit, when we want to improve as an organization.
Very
Because
true.
at the end of the day, that is what it is. We just want to keep improving and getting better. Kaizen, Kaizen, right?
Hmm.
Keep improving, small improvements. But we need the interpersonal skills to also evolve in line with what we want to achieve. And most of the time, that is not happening.
Very, very true. It is not happening. There's a disconnect between
Mm,
what agile coaches, scrum masters are telling developers
mm-hmm,
and team members,
mm-hmm,
and what their managers are
mm-hmm,
saying, and
mm-hmm.
the general culture within the organization. Let me give
Yes,
you one simple example in terms of how there needs to be an alignment between the different elements within an organization and your transition to agile.
mm-hmm,
If you one key important thing when it comes to agile teams is the
mm-hmm.
issue of collective responsibility. Now, to promote collective responsibility, you have
Mm-hmm.
to reward collective responsibility. So you have to design your reward system, your performance management system, to identify traits and behaviors that are in line with collective ownership and collective responsibility. If you don't, if you don't measure for contribution in that area, if you don't identify and measure for behaviors around that, you are not going to get collective ownership and collective responsibility. Now, that is not something a scrum master can unilaterally create. That is the reward system and the expectation system and the
Exactly.
performance
It could
management.
even be a policy issue.
That can be a policy issue. So it has to go all the way up, and that means that everybody all the way up needs to understand agility and how that contributes to agility. So the idea that you can just bring an agile coach and you can just throw them into an agile team and have them create wonders is something organization have
When you have policies that are working against you.
that are working against it. Yes.
Right? So and when we don't have that collective way of rewarding, you have people who are trying to play the hero within the team or within the organization, right? And that creates some serious blockers. Fantastic, fantastic conversations. Now let's go back a little bit. I know we've touched on it, but let's talk about framework installation. I'm an SPC, you're an SPC. We've seen a lot of, and of course, Agile, Kanban, and all of that. We've talked about how um, Agile is not about, one's, approach fits all or a cookie cutter, as it were. Eh, if we go back about 5 years, 6 years, where we had a lot of major organizations transitioning,
Mm,
you could go into an organization and you could have like 150 coaches.
mhm.
You could have up to 200 coaches. I think those days are gone forever. I think so. But let's go back to framework installation.
Mm,
What role can leadership play here in making sure that as we move forward to sanitize, and I'm not trying to pull any framework here, say, okay, maybe Scrum is bad or this is bad. No, because I keep telling people it's nothing to do with the framework, it is how we go about things. Okay, it has nothing to do with the framework. For all I care, another framework can come out tomorrow. But the question is, what problems are we trying to solve? Like you said before, what opportunities are we trying to
mhm,
leverage?
mhm,
So, what can leadership do to do away with, should I say, consulting firms that come in with templates? I call them template organizations who don't, because coaching is very important when it comes to consulting. Even in consulting, traditional consulting, what you do first is
mm,
coaching conversations. A lot of conversations happening before you start trying to do anything else. So coaching, it should always be part of the equation. But when consulting firms for the most part come in with all these templates and they're just going so much into the use of these templates and installing frameworks, how can leadership you know avoid this going forward?
So it's a very important question. Interestingly, it's also a simple. There's also a simple answer to the question,
Mm-hmm.
and the simple answer is this: it is not possible for any leader or any organization's leader to outsource the intellectual work for the development of their organization in any way.
Mm-hmm.
What I mean by that is this, and like I said, I have a background in consulting. What
Yeah.
leaders who are not, who don't understand this do is this: oh, we have a problem. Let's get a consultant to come in and solve the problem.
Yes.
And they outsource that rigor and that intellectual work to the consultant. And the consultant comes in there, does some discovery. That's a good one. Some will not even do any kind of discovery.
They
They
just
have
come with a
they have a
solution
they have a
mindset.
template. They
Yeah.
have something they're selling, and they just do some reports, give you some binders. In these days, they will send you some digital files,
Yeah.
and that binder is sitting on a shelf, and nobody
Mm.
ever uses it.
No.
You can That's lazy management, right?
Yeah.
Where you outsource the intellectual work. What leaders need to learn to do is to, from day one and all through the process, become engaged in the process. Now, consultants or anyone that has that's a helping professional should have solutions, should have point of views, should bring ideas to the table, can also even bring templates. But it's the job of the leader to look at those solutions, those templates, and looking at your organization, your problem to solve, your culture, your people, your strength, your weakness, the opportunities in your markets, and to use that and take whatever the consultant is giving you, whatever framework they're giving you, and collide those two things and then create a solution for your business.
For your business.
There is a consultant that can do that for you.
Yes.
And that lack of rigor and engagement by leadership is what needs to change. Leaders have to engage with these things. They know their business is more than the consultants. They understand their goals more than the consultants. They understand the environment they're operating more than the consultants. And so take your understanding of your business and your organization and then engage with the framework of whatever solution the consultant is giving you. And with your own people, create the solution that fits your problem. That's the solution to the
Absolutely.
problem. It's very simple, but it's difficult to do.
It's very simple, but it's difficult to do. But guess what? We have the first value of the manifesto: individuals and interactions over process and tools. So, whether you're coming in as a coach or you're coming in as a consultant, we need to have a proper conversation first, right?
Mm,
We need to have respect for people. Okay, respect for people, respect for their perspective. We need to understand as leaders, just to buttress what you're saying, that it starts with us. We need to
yeah,
engage first. We need to ask ourselves what needs to change in order for the dynamics also to change. How am I, as a leader, contributing to the behavioral patterns, if you like, or the interactional force field, if you like, that is not serving us as
very
an
true.
organization? Because it's not just about, look, if one person comes into a room, you change the dynamics of everything.
Mm,
So everybody contributes to what that system looks like. It's not down to one person. It is never down to one person, because everybody contributes to what that system looks and feels like, or the patterns that are inherent in that system. So it must start with leadership. And like you said, they have to be intentional about what it is they want. More importantly, why? Why are we
mm.
bringing in these consultants? What are we trying to solve? What are the pain points? Those are so important. And then another thing that I would like to throw down here. Thank you very much, Rhonda Lake, for joining us today. And yes, the recording will be made available. Thank you very much. And another thing that I would like to throw down here, Stephen, is this: we are talking about agile training, we're talking about, installation of framework. There's this issue of speed also. Okay,
Mm.
there's the issue of speed. I'm looking for my questions now. If I'm looking for my banner, right? There's the issue of speed, right? How can we get leadership to start to embrace that culture of going slow to go fast? Because you see, when we have a problem, we want to hit the ground running. Bring in the consultant, bring in the coaches, blah, 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 blah. Let's do this, let's do that. They want to hit the ground running, yes. But you see, at that initial stages, it's like building a house.
Hmm.
If that foundation is faulty, you are going to be patching that building for a very long time. But if you invest the time initially, I'm not saying let's plan for 2 years, let's plan for 1 year. No. If we invest enough time initially, to set that foundation right for us to kick off whatever it is we want to do. And in setting that foundation right, I want to believe that the heaviest work, okay, is about the people.
It is. It is about the people. It is about the culture. It is about the mindset. It is when you get all of that right,
Mm-hmm,
innovative ways of working, new ways of
mm-hmm,
working, they stick more quickly.
mm,
And I think, I mean, it's really boils down to
mm-hmm.
individuals and the different organizations, because
Yeah,
one of the challenges leaders have, which is important to understand, is that leaders have to balance, especially not large organizations, they have to
yes,
balance growth and development with results which their stakeholders and their
yes,
shareholders
yes,
constantly demand from them. And so
absolutely.
it goes really, it sometimes goes beyond the culture of a particular organization into the wider society
Yeah.
and the value system in the in the society. Many organizations don't have, and I say that with care now, the luxury of long runways to transition and to
But
grow and
enough
to change.
runway. But
Uh,
enough runway. That is why I said it's not about planning for 2 years. Not,
mm,
but having just that, enough runway
yeah,
to do the right things,
yeah,
right? Because you see, otherwise you pay the price later.
and that is the key,
You
right?
you pay the
You have
price.
to keep your eyes on the goal and what you want to achieve, and you
Yes.
have to understand what it takes to get there. Because if you
Yes.
don't pay that price, now you will pay it at some point.
You pay later and it might be much more expensive. And talking about that runway being just enough, yes, it's not an easy time to be a leader because, like you said, you have all these shareholders on your neck, you have competition, there's the fear of missing out, okay,
Hmm.
but again we need to have and there's that constant tension between innovation and actually developing ourselves and getting things right. So I empathize with leadership. It's not an easy time to be a leader, but again, I want to put this out there. It is important that we have enough runway to move.
Absolutely.
Otherwise, it is expensive.
Mm,
And we don't have to do everything, but we can ask ourselves, and this is where the 80-20 rule also can come in. What is the 20 that we need to do now to give us the 80% benefit? What are the things that are not negotiable in order for us to at least pay attention to before we kick off? And again, like we said, people, culture is a very important thing. Now, what an interesting conversation this has been, and how quickly time goes when you're having fun, right? Now, very quickly, adopting agile ways of working. Will it continue to be on the rise or will it decline?
it's absolutely going to be on the rise. Um, Companies, like you said in your introduction, need agility more than ever.
Yes.
The economic environment is very, very, very fluid. Things are changing real quickly. Companies need to adapt. They need to deliver value. Customers and people we serve are becoming even more
Hmm.
aware of what they need. So uh, agile ways of working are going to continue to evolve and become more adopted. Maybe someone will come and call it something else. I don't know, but to become light, such that you're reducing your waste and removing
Hmm.
things that are not delivering, that are not creating value, and creating processes that allow you to pivot and to change and to meet customers' needs. That has always been critical to enterprises,
Exactly.
and it will continue to be critical to
It will
enterprises.
continue to be critical, absolutely. So let anyone not get disappointed in any shape or form. Agile is here to stay. Organizations need to continue to improve because they are operating in a VUCA world. So, if anything, you should be thinking in 2024, how can I begin to, train myself in terms of agile ways of working, in terms of, lean, Kanban. You need them now more than ever. You need to empower yourself. So, put your money where your mouth is. Stephen, I can't thank you enough. To our audience spending your time here with us this Wednesday evening, thank you so much for your time investment. And thank you so much, Stephen, for such a fantastic engagement on this subject. Thank you. And this is where we're going to draw the curtain. Thank you all so much. Please join, connect with Stephen on LinkedIn. He is on LinkedIn. Connect with him. As you can see, he's a vault. He's a vault of knowledge. So please connect with him. Thank you very much, everybody, and bye bye.
Bye bye.